Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the first full council meeting of 2023. And so to start off, could I ask Councillor Nina Horowhenua to kick off today's proceedings with our karakia? Thank you, Nina.
Kia ora tātou, whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga. Kia mā, kina kina.
And everyone is welcome to join in.
Kia ora. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga. Kia mā, kina kina ki uta, kia mā tara tara ki tai. E he ake ana te atukura. He teo, he hoka, he hauhu, haumi e, hui e, tai ki.
Thank you. So yes, welcome to the 1st of February's meeting 2023. Welcome to councillors, welcome to staff, welcome to the one member of the public, media, and those watching online. I hope you've all had a good start to the year and fully into it, relaxed, and looking forward to no doubt a full and productive year. Just wanted to reflect on the fact that we have been very fortunate in our district to escape many of the weather issues that some of the country have experienced this month. Earlier on, of course, the Gisborne area, and now latterly the Auckland, Northland, Bay of Plenty and Coromandel, and having been through those sorts of experiences ourselves, we know that they are going through some tough times. Interesting times nationally, of course. We've got a new Prime Minister, we've got a new Minister of Local Government, so things are decidedly different from when we left them at the end of December 2022. So we've also got a general election to look forward to as well, so there's lots happening in our space, but I'm sure with the work that we've already done and are continuing to do, we'll have a really good year. So we have Councillors Jennings and Proctor online. Can I just get a confirmation that you can hear us okay? All right, thumbs up, thank you. No other apologies. Could I just remind councillors to make sure that they have their microphones close to them and speak directly into them. Those people that are online cannot hear you unless you are doing that. So in a loudish, if you like, voice would be appreciated. Thank you. So we have no members of the public who wish to speak to us today. We have no late items. Are there any councillors with declarations of interest? There being none, thank you. Sorry, Councillor Brennan.
No, not a declaration of interest. Just before we move on, I just apologise for not bringing it to attention earlier. I just wanted to acknowledge the passing late last year of Phil Kumba, who was well known in this district and across the country for very many things he was involved in over his lifetime. And he's a member of our district licensing committee since its inception in 2013, and was a huge contributor to the alcohol licensing framework in our district. So just wanted to acknowledge that, and I'm sure around the table would be well known and certainly across the district. So thank you.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention. Yes, I concur the fact that he's made a substantial contribution to the well-being of this district for many years. Okay, so now we move to the confirmation of our minutes. The minutes of Council on the 14th of December 2022 and the meeting minutes and committee meeting of Council 14th of December 2022. I'll move that these be accepted as a true and correct record. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Horowhenua. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. So our first report is 6.1, the adoption of elected members' training and development policy and approval of training program, which is, can I just move 3.1 and 3.2 that the report be received and recognised as not significant. Deputy Mayor Allen, seconded by Councillor Brannigan. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Any comments or introduction from any member of staff?
Through you, Your Worship, I'll introduce the report. Councillors, obviously one of the key mechanisms that you have to set direction and to give guidance to the organisation is through the establishment of policy. It's one of the 5 core functions of elected members. We currently don't have an elected member training and development policy, and off the back of not just the Council Mark recommendation from back in 2019, but also off the back of a new traineum, we acknowledge that the training and development of elected members is critical as a key foundation to good governance. This policy is brought to the table to try and provide some guidance to elected members on the sorts of things that are available to councillors, what they could expect from the organisation, but also to ensure that we are really wrapping support around elected members. I do want to specifically draw councillors' attention to CONA, which is the new Local Government New Zealand training and development program, which was launched just this week. The intention is that we become a member of that and really utilise that as a key foundation of training and development. Local Government New Zealand is our national body, and if we can utilise an organisation that can do a lot of the heavy lifting around good training and development, and we can provide access to elected members for that, then that's important. This is our first training and development policy for elected members, so it's certainly not perfect. I think that over time we could expect that this to evolve in terms of the maturity, the types of things that we introduce into this policy, but certainly the intention is that this policy offers elected members A, knowledge on what's available to them, B, good process around how they could access training and development, but ultimately that elected members feel like we are providing them the support they need in order to fulfil their good governance obligations. Happy to answer any questions.
I think it's also worthy to note that this is one of the recommendations that came out of the Council Mark report, that we had no formal or systematic approach to professional development for councillors. So it is taking note of that recommendation, ensuring that we follow those. And often in the past, individual councillors were not aware of some of the opportunities that were available to them to be able to increase their knowledge and make their development as councillors more effective. So this is just formalising that. Are there any questions? Councillor Tukapua.
Yes, I have inquired already about this, but just for all the other elected members to know the answer. Akuna, the subscription, regardless of your size of council, Auckland, multiple users, us, medium range, and then you got little ones like Chatham Island, all pay the same 8,500. Is that correct?
Yes, that's the subscription price for all of the councils, regardless of the number of users.
Okay, no further questions. I'll put 3.3 and 3.4. The Council adopts the elected members' training and development policy, and that Council approves the training program for 2023-2025. Councillor Tukapua.
Sorry, I didn't realise you would jump in. I did have one other question, and I want to support the policy and second that, but there's just a few things underneath it in terms of the program prescribed that I would like to propose changes to. So yes, accepting of the policy, but just some, I want to pass the idea past council low and know how to go about that. But if you want to keep going, I'll just leave it.
So those proposed changes that you might want to.
Yeah, so I want to second your
Yeah,
motion
right.
of having a policy.
Okay, so
yes,
we'll note
I
that
just-
the 3.3 and 3.4 are seconded. But then,
that. So, and I'll let the members to page 11, the framework or that table of how it's prescribed.
Yep.
That's the part that I'd like to see some flexibility in.
sure.
For a more fairer, equitable approach. And look, it'll come back around another day if today's not the day to do that. But otherwise, yippee, we still have a policy. You're happy for me to explain in more detail?
I think it would be, good
So just as I won't say old councillor, more experienced, who's been obviously a participant of all of these things. In my first term, I became an RMA commissioner. I did the qualification, and due to some unfortunate handling, not in our office, but somewhere else, by the time I could renew, my status expired, and then at the last minute they told me I couldn't go. Oh, would you mind sitting the whole thing all over again? No thanks, because that's a mammoth task. Other certified commissioners will tell you so. So that aside, just saying that I have done all these things, the planning conference, LGNZ, and there is value in all these things, and I guess an earlier term I had challenged the conference attendance where it was just the mayor and two, but yet council also paid for all the partners. And I'm not against partners going, but I just think that should come out of your own expense, and effectively the money we were paying for them, a couple more councillors could go, and then that knowledge comes back to this table, which makes use and more benefit for the community. So that was decided back then, but now I'd like to take it a step further. And within the budget of $40,000 a year, and because I know other councils do this, otherwise I wouldn't suggest it, that each councillor is allocated up to $2,500 per annum to select a conference or training within that amount. Now, new councillors have a pretty good idea now the demands on you, the time it takes for this role, the extensive hours we're putting into this LTP amendment, and then of course I'll do the proper one. So what you choose, you're going to be very selective because it's something over and above, right? Now, in some circumstances, like Palmerston North held the conference, we didn't need flights. We didn't need, so that there's a lot of cost taken out already. If it was in Wellington or New Plymouth, no, we don't need flights for that either. So there are times, and in any given year, so we don't know what the third year triennium, who's going to host that. So right now, we're only working with what we know. But the point is, if you wanted to go to the conference within that allocation, you could. I think if you wanted to expend over and above that allocated amount, it's at your own expense. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm proposing, and it still allows for the akona subscription. And if you want to if an officer wants to crunch the numbers and confirm whether the 8 plus the each works, give or take. That is my proposal, because currently only 2 can go to that. That's if you're in the hearings committee. So that's only 2 out of the 5. So actually, some of you can't necessarily. And then only 4 can go to that, or 3. In some years, and overall, it talks about 18 going to Institute of Directors. Now there's only 13 of us. So someone's going twice, someone's going once. But under what I'm proposing, you can choose whether you go to that once or twice. Because under the quotes or pricing, that's 900 something plus GST. So you could go to 2 Institute of Directors and then 1 year if you wanted to. And under the matrix, it's considered an essential skill to do the governance and the finance one. I'd highly recommend the finance one, so you're up to it when the LTP proper comes around, things like that. So that's it. Sorry to go on, but I needed to really explain. Okay.
Any comment initially?
Look, I think it ultimately, it's a decision of council. I think that Councillor Tukapua raises a fair point. If I was providing advice to council, what I'd say is that you could, adopt 3.3, which is about the policy, because the policy doesn't actually go into the detail within the report. But you could what council needs to decide is whether you want the training program to be as it has been in the past, where it's kind of 2 people here, 3 people here, or if what I think I'm hearing from Councillor Tukapua is kind of an equitable allocation. Your resolution could be that council approves the proposed training options, but works with each elected member to develop an individual training plan that meets the needs and aspirations of each elected member. But what really needs to be decided is whether you want the funding divided equally, because it will only work if that's the case. So I can assist with working resolutions to help get you there, but we'll take the advice to the table.
I wonder in that case whether we remove 3.4 from the recommendations and bring that back at a later date and further explore what Councillor Tukapua has raised and talk about it a bit more between ourselves, rather than have a debate and a discussion around whether we do that now, but actually have a bit more talk about it, a bit of a chat. So in that case, we've got a mover and a seconder for 3.3, and can I just have a quick show of hands? Are people comfortable that we've removed 3.4 from the list of recommendations? Yep, thank you, Tara. So in that case, any further discussion or debate about 3.3?
Yeah,
Yes,
Mr. Mayor. Bernie, sorry. No, I just wanted to support what Peter said in the context, but I also want to. You're good at that. Look, I also wanted to ensure that, depending on the portfolios that councillors have, that we're very clearly, shown what is required to deliver on those, and all council need to know, because different people got different roles and portfolios, and some may not require as intensive opportunities as others. So I just think we really need to understand what each councillor is going to be responsible for, and then cost it accordingly, because then we might have to prioritise which ones we attend and don't attend. Yeah. Kia ora.
thank you. And in the past, it's mainly been, do you want to go to something, rather than sort of actually working out what are the best advantageous courses and developments that would fit every councillor in terms of the roles that they play. So, I mean, this at least is trying to define where the gaps are, and in terms of your development, what you should be going to.
So in the back of the policy, there is a skills matrix that sort of identifies what the essential skills are that we would look for elected members, and then there are some role-specific skills, such as your hearing commissioners, your sale and supply of alcohol act. So there is that sort of mix of the generic overall skills and then the role specifics that we look at as well.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll move 3.3. We've got a second from Perry. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Now to 3.5. And I think Deputy Mayor Allen has got a suggested recommendation for that. Thank you.
Just moving to one name, Mr. Mayor, that Council approves the attendance of Councillor Tamihana at the New Zealand Planning Conference.
Second.
Any further discussion? Put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. I'm sure you'll get great value out of that, Justin. 3.6. That Council refers this paper and the policy to Te Awaho Foxton Community Board for their information.
So moved.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Allen, seconded by Councillor Brannigan. All those in favour? Against? Carried. And 3.7, that Council notes that officers will circulate course information to elected members prior to the next Council meeting and present a paper seeking approval of conference and course attendees for the remainder of the 2023 year. Now that's probably irrelevant at this stage because we are going to further discuss individual plans. So we will remove 3.7 from that recommendation as well. Just to highlight too the Good Decisions RMA certification, it does state there incorrectly that I am a hearing chair. I'm not a hearing chair, and we would dearly love one. Former Deputy Mayor Mason was the only accredited hearing chair, and so we are seeking. So any councillor that's got a inclination in terms of that sort of RMA focus would be greatly welcomed. All right, moving to 6.2, which is the adoption of external appointments policy. Could I move 3.1, 3.2, that the report be received? Moved Deputy Mayor Allen, seconded by Councillor Olsen. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Any further introduction for this topic?
Through your worship, look, just council to note, once again, this is an example of where, through the creation of policy, you set the expectations. We don't currently have a policy around the appointment of external people to council committees or subcommittees. Obviously, prior to Christmas, you endorsed a process for the independent members of Risk and Assurance Committee, which you will consider later on today. But this is to put a policy in place so that we have the guidance every time we need to do something like this, that in time will become part of your governance manual. Happy to answer questions.
Councillor Brannigan.
Yeah, just a comment really. Happy to see it. I think in the past there's been a commentary in some quarters about how we bring external people onto committees, so good to see, and it'll prove its worth, I think.
Councillor Tupper.
Yeah, good. I agree. My one question is, at what point in the process is the remuneration for independent members determined and approved by who?
Good question, Councillor Tukapoa. So we actually discussed this morning about if there was a gap in this, it is probably that we need an additional policy, which is the remuneration policy for external appointments. So pending a decision from council this afternoon about our Independent Risk and Assurance Committee members, I can then obviously enter conversations with them. It's really helpful that we can take guidance from both the Institute of Directors but also Local Government New Zealand around the expected remuneration for these independent type roles. But we'll add it to our wish list of policies we'd like to have one day, that having a remuneration policy to guide this, but also to guide where as elected members you might be requiring support or advice from experts in the community that might not sit as they might not sit on a committee, but they might assist council in other ways. An example is take like kaumātua support. We don't have policy that helps guide that, so it's on the action list.
Deputy Mayor.
Just speaking briefly to 5.3, Mr. Mayor, where it identifies the composition of the panel, the recruitment panel, and it does not there identify that from time to time we might want expertise on that panel. It does, however, in the policy itself, but just for transparency, I think we need to note that there will be occasions where we do want expertise on the recruitment panel.
Agreed. Yeah. Okay, so I'll put 3.3, the council adopts the external appointments policy, and 3.4, the council reviews this policy 3 years after its adoption. Moved by Deputy Mayor Allen, seconded by Councillor Boyle. Any further discussion or debate? Put those recommendations. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Moving to 6.3 on page 29, the adoption of the triennial agreement. Move 3.1 and 3.2. The report be received. Moved by Councillor Boyle, seconded by Councillor Olsen. All those in favour? Against? Carried. So you'll note the triennial agreement is a lawful requirement of the Local Government Act that we must sign before the 1st of March each in 2023 or at the start of each triennium. The only difference or change that has occurred in that time is the formation of what we hope will be the Manawatu Wanganui Mayoral Forum. While the mayors have been party to regular meetings together, we've had no official, if you like, body that is representative of us that can be used to work together to advocate and collaborate and to push regional issues. It's very evident from what I've seen in exchanges with central government that they don't like relationships with individual councils. They much prefer the collective, if you like, and if we can offer a regional focus, then it will be much better received. For us, it's been very evident when O2NL was one of those projects that was being considered by the government as to not progressing. The mayors of the Horizons region turned up to the Minister's office and basically said, you have to do this for the region just as much as you have to do this for Horowhenua. So that sort of advocacy is really welcome. And there are instances of, Canterbury, Waikato, different areas like that have probably achieved a heck of a lot more as a forum, a mayoral forum, than they have done individually as councils. And you'll also note that there are the terms of reference for the Climate Action Committee and things like that, which form part of that regional committee structure, as well as transport, emergency management and others that I attend regularly. And one of the things that we will ensure that happens this time is that there is regular reporting back from those committees. They only meet quarterly, but it's important that you are aware of what is going on, but it by no means dilutes or takes away the decision making around this table. It's just adding to it. So any comments or questions that anybody has around the agreements? Sorry. Councillor Jennings.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, just two questions, probably to yourself or the Chief Executive, just around the agenda paper itself is silent on cost or budget associated with the agreement. But I note on page 40 of the agenda, there's reference to the Climate Change Committee receiving financial contributions from member authorities as may be mutually determined and acceptable to individual local authorities. And I just wondered whether there'd been any discussion or whether we have any insight around expected cost or possible costs associated with participation in that. And just to, I guess, elaborate, the context of my question is that we, as I understand it, are already a member of a joint climate committee associated with the Wellington Growth Framework. And I just wanted to get a sense of how these two committees might overlap, but also to understand whether we are duplicating effort and resource, I guess, was really my area of focus.
Through you, Your Worship, I'm not aware of any request for funding or, in-kind secretarial support take for for example, the Climate Action Joint Committee. It's fair to say that at an operational level, our involvement and engagement has an opportunity for room for improvement. So with the new traineum, with endorsement of Mayor Burney continuing to be the representative, it is our intention to make sure that we have executive management support and interaction into that committee. With regards to your question around the context of your question around risk of duplication, it's probably something I don't feel like I could comment on, because I think that's a piece of analysis we need to do. Across the board, the fact that we are spending time in both the Wellington region and the Horizons region does mean there is duplication, but whether that is to our detriment or to our advantage, I think there's probably some work to do around that.
Councillor Brannigan.
Yeah, just add to those comments. I recall the last trinium when the Wellington Growth Framework volley came to council, and we jumped on board that train. We accepted that there would be, I guess, some duplicate, because we are basically part of two regions in that form. So I think good question by Councillor Jennings, but I think that was within those discussions. So where that lands ultimately, like you say, CE will be interesting.
And look, through you, Your Worship, Ms. Baddock might comment a little bit later when she's giving you an update on our submissions to the Resource Management Act reform around boundaries and cross-regional boundaries. But it is important just to remind Council that under law, we are part of the Horizons region, Manawatu Wanganui region. We choose to interact in the Wellington region. That might change one day, but right now, we don't get a choice to work with the Manawatu Wanganui region. That is guided by legislation.
And Councillor Jennings, just draw your attention to the introduction to those bullet points at the top on page 40, where it does say that the Climate Action Joint Committee does not have the power to legally bind any council to any act or decision unless that act or decision has been granted to by a decision of that council. So there is some sort of, if you like, almost a stopgap, that the decision still finally rests with us as to anything that we do.
Can I just clarify then, through you, Mr. Mayor, that I guess that any costs associated with that at the moment would be unbudgeted, and therefore there would be a further discussion, or the CEO, the expectation was that the CEO would have that discussion with us, or that it would come back to a meeting. Is that your understanding of how that would work?
Yes, but in keeping with that though, there's not many lines in the budget that say climate action with any project. It's generally accepted that most projects would have that included within the total budget for a particular project.
I think that like there will be some projects that we're already working on that have the climate lens to it. In terms of the the particular terms of reference here, I think are more alluding to secretariat support, project management support. While we might have some money in the budget, it would be very small, and it would be like anything above and beyond what we might already be contributing to regional collaboration or regional shared services or regional working. We would need to come back to council and get your guidance.
Councillor.
Yeah, just a question similar. Under the terms of reference for the Mural Forum, page 37, how is bullet point 3 around materially contributing to obtain the committee's objectives, and then you look across to the objectives on page 36, and there are some there around implementation. It doesn't say exactly what's what, but I think I'd be more interested to know the potential of that rather than the other one. And I know in the past, Mayor Bernie, sorry, you've said, oh look, if there was a type of decision required like that, I would come back to council. So I am comfortable, and I trust that that's what you'd do. So otherwise I just wanted to raise it that materially, I mean that means money, so resource. I'd be comfortable otherwise. And I guess it's like that C4LDA, when we agreed as a table to enter into that, it wasn't a forum but collective of councils, then that decision was made by the table, not on your own, which I respect. Thank you.
And I mean, there are issues that will impact the whole country that individually we contribute to. Three Waters, future local government, the RMA reforms. If there is a opportunity for a reasonable collaboration in terms of the advocacy and submissions that we want to make, then I think that's a far better situation to be in. But I don't think this absolutely ties us to having to do that if we don't wish to. As we've seen with C4LD, 34 councils or whatever it is, 67 belong to it. And I'm sure there are councils, say in the Canterbury region, which are part of C4LD, but others that aren't, but they still advocate collectively to government as well. All right, so rather than read out all of 3.3 A through H, is there any further debate or discussion on those particular items? Okay, so could I have a mover and a second? Move Councillor Brannigan, seconded Councillor Young. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Right, we're now moving to 7.1 on page 45, the endorsement of council on a page. Sounds really a great topic, doesn't it? So moving to 2.1, 2.2, that we receive the council on a plan on a page. So moved Councillor Young, seconded Deputy Mayor Allen. All those in favour? Against? Carried. So you have in front of you an updated version of council plan on a page, which we discussed at our workshop last Wednesday, and which reflects the feedback that we've had following that workshop. But is there any comment or discussion or questions that people wish to raise? Deputy Mayor Allen.
Well, just to express a certain level of excitement, Mr. Mayor, at this document, we do have a plethora of policies, and they all sit within a document form. This sits on one side of one A3 page, and it provides a clear focus to what councillors' values are, and those values sit in the front and centre of this document, and those values drive what emerged from a 2-day retreat along with the workshop which you referenced last week. So it's the product of considerable thought, but also of consensus around this table. And I think it's wonderful that we can share with the community on one side of one page what our values are, what our top 10 priorities are, and the means by which we plan to realise those. So I just wanted to pause and express the excitement I personally feel at this moment.
My question was, at what level of your excitement meter are you on after this?
I'm probably an 11 out of 10.
11 out of 10. Well, for new councillors, if our experienced and knowledgeable Deputy Mayor is at that level of excitement, you can understand, I think, what the value of having a plan on a page actually means to a lot of us that have been around the table, that have probably, we do these strategies and policies and we talk a lot, but to actually have it written down on a page, I think, is a great tool for us to remind ourselves of what our focus is and our priorities are, but also to show the community what and how we're going to do and why we're going to do it as well. I think the values that are at the top of that page are just as important as the priorities that sit underneath it. So thank you all for your input into this. As the Deputy Mayor mentioned, the retreat was extremely valuable in teasing out what these priorities and focus areas are, and also how we're going to work in doing and completing this. So obviously this will be a document that will be changed and updated and will be live and current as much as we can do it, but a lot of the focus is over the next 12 months, and obviously we're going to have to revisit and redo it at some future stage as well. Councillor Jennings, you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just sorry, I felt like you were about to just put the motion.
I was.
Look, I guess reflecting on the comments from Deputy Mayor Allen, to totally accept that there is broad consensus around the majority of the contents of this document. I guess I just wanted to flag that I did have some reservations about one of the words used in one of the priorities, and so I didn't want to get into a debate around that today. I guess I just wanted to clarify or seek your views on the need for, obviously, for this to be a living document and for us to refine things as they go along. And so, for example, the word here that I'm have some challenge around is in the first priority, which is increased affordable housing. And what affordable means to every single person sitting around that table may differ. And so I think while I'm happy to support the wording there today on the plan, I do think we need to undertake some work to clarify where we're setting the goal. What are we actually going to be using as our measure? What are we aiming for? Because I think that there are some targets that are currently in the housing action plan, but obviously the growth in house prices, land values, and obviously construction costs mean that actually achieving that level of affordability detailed in that plan, for me, probably is totally unrealistic, and therefore this priority is somewhat, or could be viewed as somewhat empty. So I think there needs to be some further work and thinking around what do we actually mean by this priority, and I'm hoping that there is support around the table to although there's commitment to this priority, that there is, I guess, appetite to actually further discuss and refine what this actually means.
Yeah, look, I completely agree with you, Councillor Jennings, and I suppose once we adopt this council plan on a page, the hard work starts, and as we referenced in, 4.5, the focus will turn on developing work plans and trying to understand, the projects and the outcomes that we seek for each of those priorities and how we will achieve them. I'm personally comfortable with the word affordable. New Zealand is, it'll mean different things in different places, but we know that here in the Horowhenua, our affordability index, which there is one, is at, getting up to the high end where it used to be quite low, and we need to be challenged in terms of trying to assist in keeping that down where to a level that is, approachable for a lot of our community. Deputy Mayor.
Look, just a brief response to that, and I absolutely appreciate the point that Councillor Jennings is making. We do need to understand the nuance around that word. However, as I said before, this is a values-driven document, and I refer in the context of the phrase of enabling affordable housing to the value of manaakitanga, where we talk about putting our people first by showing them that they matter through a focus on whānau's needs. And as long as that value, along with te ākitanga, which sits alongside it, as long as those values exist, we must have words like affordable on this document, understanding that we need to unpack that in greater detail, but let's never shy away from the importance of that word.
Just one fast comment from me through the Mayor. I actually support Councillor Allen, and just really to remind us that it is a living document that's amenable. I suppose it depends on what's the review time for councillors to provide that feedback. 1 year, kia ora.
So yes, it will be reviewed annually, yes. Councillor Tupu.
Just really quick statement is I really like it, and for the first time, well, not for the first time, but for the first time in a long time, I feel like there's a far better alignment between governance and management, and that's even just having those pillars there and taking on these same values throughout. It's great job. Thank you, CE and Mayor Benny and the team. It's like a team, this document.
Would you like to move the recommendation 2.3? Seconded by Councillor Tamiahara. Any further debate or discussion? Put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Seven point two, the organisation performance report for February 2023, page 51, and just noting the dates in the recommendation, it is February 2023, not January. So I just move receipt of the report, and there's no other recommendation. Well, we'll leave that. In fact, are there any questions? Well, ask the Chief Executive if she wants to introduce the report.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I just have Miss Straker joining me at the table because I will get her just to speak at a high level to the financial summary which is contained within the report. Council, this is the second organisation performance report we've ever presented to Council. When I first tasked the team with this, my vision was like a 40-page, quick, snapshot report. And our amazing team who are scattered around the room have managed to chop off 10 pages, I understand, for this month. But certainly, as we mature as an organisation and telling our story about the great work we're doing or where there's room for improvement or how we're tracking against our legislative responsibilities and, of course, our financial performance, we'll get better at telling that in a more succinct way. We all know that local government gets a lot of flack about what it does or doesn't do, and I think you can read this report and get a really good feel for the many, many, many touch points that this organisation is having on our community, but also the many, many challenges that we are facing right now and how we're trying to carefully navigate all of them. I, of course, just want to specifically draw your attention to what has been a key focus and will continue to be a key focus of ours, which is the long-term plan amendment. That is the mechanism that ultimately is driving our work program for the next few months. And in addition to that, our preparation associated with the reform programs and our team continue to put a lot of work into making sure we're well planned for that, but also that we're engaging with Wellington in the most appropriate way. And then just before I hand over to Jacinta, picture tells 1,000 words, and I think the front page of the organisation performance report probably tells a pretty good story about a piece of infrastructure that was open just before Christmas that this community have enjoyed day after day, except for maybe the one day that it was closed over summer. And so just to acknowledge that, what I'm hoping is that we can tell a story about many more splash pad moments in the next few months. But I'll hand over to you, Jacinta, to talk about the numbers.
Thank you. So for you, I just wanted to highlight talk about our capital, a bit of a summary in terms of where we are in terms of our income and also in terms of spending. So as Monique mentioned, as the report progresses, you'll see more and more in terms of graphics and different summaries so that you can get a sense of where we're going without having to read too much detail. In terms of the capital program, and it's important to note that this report is the end of November, so there is a bit of a delay just due to the timing of when reports come through. So as of the end of November, we completed $11.4 million of the capital program. It's important to note in there that while the council has officially signed off up to $56 million of potential projects that could go forward, there's $35 million that has been approved in terms of a funding or a borrowings that we can take on. So how that's looking at the moment at the end of December, that sat at 13.6. So as we finish the calendar year, it was getting close. It is under half, so there is some pressure on us to meet that 35 million, but the team are still actively working towards that as a target for the year. In terms of operating income, you'll see in the report that we were tracking above budget from that side of things. What that really has to do with, though, is the Mayor's Task Force for Jobs program, which you would have seen outlined in there, and the fact that we received some grant income in the door, but we end up spending that on the other side. So it's not really additional income in the sense of something that we're not needing to spend. In terms of from the operating side of things, from a spending side, we're continuing to be pressured, as you'll see, particularly in the water and wastewater area around our maintenance and our spend that's needing to be done by the Alliance. So year to date, as of November, we had spent quite a bit more in that space. Overall, and in the interest space as well, as you with interest rates growing as they are. So in the executive summary, currently the projection is that costs could exceed $1 million in terms of what the budget's looking like, but that is to give you an indicative number at this stage. Our intention is to look at the business and see where we can come back to you with a position that's breaking even for the year it will be a challenge, but we wanted to give you an initial view of where things are tracking. So managers are actively going through their budgets and their forecasts and looking at where we can pull back costs, where we might not be getting the revenue we expect. If, for example, volumes are not tracking where they need to be, for example, in the regulatory space, we might not bring on everybody that we'd planned to, assuming volumes are at a higher level. So those types of things are actively happening across the business as well. So that's it in terms of a summary of where we are.
Thanks, Jacinda. Any questions around the financials or any other aspects of the report? Well, I don't know whether that's a good sign or not a good sign that everyone's completely satisfied with what's going on. And I suppose, though, for councillors, this is a fantastic way to keep yourselves up to date with the relevant things that are happening within the organisation. And one of the things that we've seen and with contained in this report is that statement of service performance indicators. Often we did not receive those until end of a financial year when it had already finished. So to actually receive those partway through a year to see what is our standard of performance going on is actually a great improvement. And I've just seen a light bulb go off above Councillor Tuputua's head.
Yeah, I do have some questions. I thought you were just specifically around the
No, anything else about the report?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Go for it.
Right. Okay, where do we start? On page 61, let's go there. There's under property, and it's, I guess it grabs my attention because some of these things I thought were well down the track, but anyway, and but I can see why. There's some hold up, for example, that 2 hectares for the Playford Park thing, holiday park camping, and then, but I guess if some information could come back later, please, on that last bullet point around the MOU for a cable for solar farm, and then page 62, bullet point 2. See, this one I thought was done, the Old Shannon Depot, but there's a bit of delay there. And under the issues and risks identified, those, just where that's all at. And I'll just summarise it like that. I'd just like to know a bit more if that's okay. I'm sure others would want to know too. And if we can move on to page 125, and I'm just going to go over a couple of the red ones. So there it's just highlighting the number of visitors, kind of our target and what is, but then coupled with on the following page 126 where it's got the number of items loaned, and I mean that's well behind, and based on the timing of this, if we doubled it, because there's another X amount of months left, we could near about get 160,000 rather than 270 per, just hypothetically. And I'm not coming with criticism. What I'm asking is, are others around the country having the same experience? And then is it because people are doing life differently now? And if so, well, we know so because it's a changing world. what ideas or adaptations are being considered? Because in light of the coming LTP, I hope some of that is in train and ta-da, awesome, like, you know what I mean? So there you go, that's my first, the red markers. Now moving on to page, should I keep going with my questions? Oh yeah.
Respond.
Yeah, can I just respond by, we'll follow up on that. I think part of like SSPs is such a in my personal view, archaic way of measuring performance. And sometimes what happens is a number gets pulled. So in this case, we've said, more than 270,000 items loaned from the libraries across the district. We're not actually telling you whether was that measure of more than 270,000, was that more than last year? Was that less than last year? What is, like, we have no context as to whether that is more than 5 years ago. So I think that how we show a trend is important. And the same. The other thing that we'll I think when we show a red flag, which is like we've been really upfront and saying there's no way we're going to achieve that, which is what you've figured out as well. The kind of why and what are we doing? That what I think I'm hearing is there's a little bit of an explanation that could be provided.
Moving on to page 130. So, yep, and there's good explanation there around why we're not achieving, like for the first one around the resource consents, only 40% approved within the timeframes, but it goes on to say that it's because of the lack thereof contractors available to process the applications. So, because the next box says, actually, for the building consents, we anticipate that this, will improve throughout the year for that one. But back to that, the resource consent ones, do we have any idea when and how this one will improve? I'm aware that there's a shortage. So is it ongoing, or is there some light at some point? I don't know.
Yeah, look, we're just reviewing the whole process at the moment. So looking at what sort of demand we've got on hand and incoming, and also what sort of resource we've got available. So we are certainly looking at internal resourcing and external contractor capacity to bring that up to speed. It's very much a work in progress, but the intent is that we would start to improve back towards timeframes. Demand incoming is also down a little bit, so that certainly helps.
And the final one is page 151. It might be for Daniel. You have covered some information around leakage and bits and pieces, but as you see, we've meant to be band B, and we've achieved that from my recollection in previous term, but now not. And I just wondered if you could come back with a bit more deep, information on that later.
Yeah, we'll come back with some more information on that in the trend lines over that period.
Councillor Gribstow.
Just, I guess, picking up the comment, Monique, around it being a bit archaic. If I was to look at this, some of the stuff I ask myself, so what? So I guess given that you've got a new leadership team, you've got a different structure, is it worthwhile getting each of the GMs to review the goals that they want to set and report on, and henceforth linking them back through to our top 10 priorities and our values and behaviours, so that instead of a so what, it's a little bit more meaningful, because to me, I don't really care how many books have gone out of the library or not. So I guess kind of, can we continue to refine these down to have more relevant goals or measures of success?
Through your worship, yes we can, but we can't until we do the long-term plan. So SSPs are essentially legislated for under the Local Government Act, and has to go through an audit process, and so our only real provision to change it is through a long-term plan or a long-term plan amendment. And so say we were wanting to change just the three waters, or we're even going into this long-term plan amendment, we would only be able to change the solid waste or the three waters ones. We wouldn't be able to change all of them. Another thing on our list that absolutely, when we do the 2024 long-term plan, I think there's a real opportunity to change the way that we ask ourselves whether we're delivering value and how we report that to community.
Just to say that I concur. I've screwed my nose up at some of these in the past. So there's a process for it, but it's asking ourselves. Well, yes, the officers will do, but it's asking ourselves, what do we want to know and why, and what are the indicators of that? And because if it shows this, it shows that, ideally that data would have some sort of substance and help us to improve on X, Y, Z. Yeah.
Thank you. Look, it is very much a work in progress, the organisation performance report, as we've seen. But the fact that we're having a warts and all look at actually how we do stuff, I think is really informative, not only for us, but for our community, to understand the length and breadth and width of depth of what council actually does. Part of the the message to our community is council does a heck of a lot more than just collect your rubbish and collect your rates and do things like that. There's a huge amount of work that goes on in the background that they're not aware of. And one of the, my priorities this term is to change the perception of how our community views council, that we're not just that big machine that tries to put laws in front of them and things like that. And I agree in some ways with what you're saying, Councillor Grimstone, but it also it signals trends. It signals ways that we might influence some of the decision making that we have when it comes to budgets and doing things like that. So it's an important piece of background information that can do that. And I would hope that in 6 weeks' time, when you get your next performance report, you'll be referring back to this one just to see what those trends and those developments and the changes that have been made in those 6 weeks and the progress that we are making is doing. And can I, in doing that, can I just acknowledge those that put the report together? I know it will probably 6 weeks will come around a heck of a lot quicker than you think at times, but I appreciate the work that goes into it, and especially Charlie for all the work collating everything, all that data, and putting it into a readable format for us. It is appreciated. Thank you. Councillor Tamihana.
Yeah, no, sorry, I just wanted to speak to a couple of points also quickly, and I did raise them earlier in emails with councillors. Page 82 refers to a budget around Lake Horowhenua Development Plan, so I definitely would like to request more information around that plan, if it's even a plan, and what would happen to that budget if there is no plan. the other one I wanted to raise is, as I go through the document, language of council changes, and so I suppose what I'm seeking here is some clarification around what your understanding of terminologies around tangata whenua and mana whenua. I see the wording applied differently, so I'm actually trying to understand what this council criteria is to apply the wording. So if someone can assist me in that, that would be great. Page 104, I see there's some stuff around Taraika and some stuff going around appellants. I suppose I'm really trying to understand the modelling around Taraika, how it fits with O2 now, and I suppose what I'm really thinking about ultimately is any negative impacts here on our lake and our waterways. And so I'm yet to see any modelling that shows me that these issues are being dealt with. And I believe it leads to the development contribution policy that I would like to speak to later. I think we're going to be talking around there. But there's some clarity I seek in that space as well in terms of what do those contributions truly contribute to. Kia ora.
Duly noted. Thank you. Okay, so just moving back to the recommendations on page 51. Sorry. Councillor Jennings, you've got a question?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, just a very brief comment, if you'll permit me, just to reference on page 110, there's a really great table called the Life Cycle and Confidence Report, and I wanted to specifically acknowledge how useful that is as a tool. I think it's going to provide us with a very useful tool to give us a snapshot of where all the various projects are at. And so I just wanted to acknowledge it and its value. So thank you to the team that put it together. I guess just for the next meeting, it would just be useful to have some sort of indication or asterisks or something to show any changes in any of those from the last report. But just really wanted to thank the team for putting that together. I'm going to certainly use it as a really useful tool.
Thank you. Okay, so 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, report be received, recognised not significant, that having considered all matters raised in the organisation performance report, September to November 2022, the report February 23 be noted. Moved, Councillor Grimstone, seconded Deputy Mayor Allen. All those in favour? Against? Carried, thank you. Right, moving to page 153, 7.3, the submission on the Natural and Built Environment Bill and Spatial Planning Bill. Lauren is coming to the table. Welcome, Lauren. While you're doing that, can we just move 2.1 and 2.2, the report be received? Move Deputy Mayor Allen, seconded Councillor Olsen. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Welcome, Lauren.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Councillors. Just 2 points to make quickly before being happy to take any questions. As indicated within the submission itself, this has been quite a quick piece of work we've had to turn around, and since it's been on the agenda, we have had some updates from other agencies and networks that we're associated with about the direction on their submission, and in particular the one from Taituara. They had previously in their draft recommended that the Regional Planning Committee's local authority representative, that must be an elected member, and we'd supported that position in the draft submission here. I've just heard that Taituara are changing their position on that in the final version of their submission in response to feedback that they've received from other networks. So a question to consider today is whether we want to change our position in the submission or not. And then secondly, just touching on some of the earlier discussions around cross-regional planning approaches, particularly when it comes to things like spatial planning. I'm happy to answer any questions elected members might have in terms of how that might work for Horowhenua under the new system, having those close links to both the north and the south of us.
Do we know why they've changed their view on that?
I suspect it's because some agencies, some councils might have had an opinion that having a technical expert sitting on that regional planning committee might be more appropriate. I think for some that might be the case. The downside of that is, of course, that would then remove, I guess, another step of accountability between the regional planning committee and the communities that they're there to represent.
I would like to maintain our position if others would support it.
But is that? Oh, Councillor Proctor.
Thank you. I just have a question. I can't remember all the details in the submission, but I was wondering if the submission contained any reference about the amount of powers the minister now has to determine any decisions. I mean, recently the minister used some quite extreme powers to force an exemption on water quality standards in our catchment, and this seems to be going to be the standard in the new plan, the new act as well.
Yes, it's correct to note the amount of power given to the minister, or proposed to be given to the minister for the environment under the new system. It isn't a point that we've made directly in our submission. I have seen it in others, and I can't quite recall whether that was LGNZ or Taituara or potentially the NZPI, New Zealand Planning Institute submission that I saw it in, LGNZ. But happy to include that as an additional point within our draft submission.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry, I should have given you the feedback earlier in the last couple of weeks.
Lauren, in terms of that change, I mean, there's quite a big paragraph you make about the loss of local voice, as we're going to see anyway. That removing that sort of governance member, if you like, from a body like that would seem to me to make even the local voice be even more removed from having a position in terms of that, which I would not support either. I can't see us benefiting from having some appointed person that, while they may be technical, I'm sure they'll have other avenues that they can actually influence or change direction in terms of things. Interesting.
Yeah. Look, the only comment I would add to that is I fail to see why it should be an either or. To me, front of mind for the reasons that you've given, Lauren, are that we need to continue to support local voice in what is increasingly a nationalised and regionalised approach to planning, but that expertise and so on is also an important part of the picture, but not at the expense, one at the expense of the other. So to me, I join with Councillor Tukapua and the Mayor in fiercely opposing the suggestion.
Just to clarify, within the change that Taituara we're proposing to make to their submission, and that's reflecting the sort of the status quo of what's proposed in the draft, is that it wouldn't specify whether the local authority member had to be an elected member or a technical expert. It would be up to the local authority to determine that. But take the point that there's a strong desire to see that role for governance and for elected members within those new decision-making structures on resource management plans.
Just wondering too, Lauren, in terms of your colleagues around, especially around our region, pretty much on the same line. And,
yes, they are. We actually, myself and a couple of other members of the planning team here, attended a regional planning forum just last Friday, which is a collection of council planners from around the region, and we spent some time talking about this, and we were all pretty much on the same page with our fundamental concern being around the loss of local voice, and potentially around some of the clarity issues to be resolved through drafting, but that fundamentally the direction of reform appeared to be positive.
Cool. Councillor.
Just a final comment is that I think I heard Councillor Proctor raise his concern around the increased powers of the Minister, and I'm the same. Don't like it. Note that.
So, any further questions or clarifications sought on the
Mr. Mayor.
what is? Sorry, Councillor Jennings.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, it was just a question to Lauren. One of the things that we've talked about in the past is this situation where we've got multiple national policy statements that impact on the Horowhenua district that potentially don't align and conflict with one another, and because there's no overarching hierarchy or prioritisation of the outcomes that the MPSs are looking to achieve. And I see as part of our submission, we talk about how the NPF could be used as a tool to I guess, identify and articulate that hierarchy or priorities. Can I just test that I've understood that is our position and that's what we're seeking, is that we're actually wanting a solution or a resolution to, I guess, the really difficult and challenging situation we currently face with those conflicting MPSs. Have I understood that part of the submission correctly?
Yes, that's correct. So the purpose of the National Planning Framework, it'll evolve over time. The first stage of the National Planning Framework that they're proposing to release will simply consolidate existing national direction and provide some direction on managing conflicting priorities, which I think is really important. However, we also, I say we as in planners generally, have a view that National Planning Framework still needs to provide enough flexibility that at the regional spatial planning level, through regional spatial strategies, for example, that it provides scope for communities to determine what that means within their context. So more direction than what we've got right now, but not so much specificity that we can't amend things to suit local context.
So just as a follow-up, does that mean that it would take the current national policy statement on highly versatile, highly valuable soils? So our submission position is that we want some local flexibility to be able to actually apply and implement that, so it doesn't create perverse outcomes. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, yes, correct. And to consider, or to have a pathway, I suppose. So if you take the highly productive land example, that whether or not that was top priority or second priority or third priority might vary depending on the particular challenges the region was facing, or what availability of highly productive land they had, for example, or to what extent water quality was an issue. So guidance within the NPF on how you would go about setting out those priorities.
Great, thank you so much.
Councillor Proctor.
Thanks. I just have one quick question. And again, I apologise. It's been a while since I read your submission, and I'm working off a laptop, so I can't bring it up easily. I'm just wondering if there was what your thoughts are around the role of unsettled iwi are in the Act.
Yeah, an interesting question, because I think the role of unsettled iwi will of course be fundamental, but I don't think we can get away from the fact that unsettled iwi and settled iwi are going to be coming from very different capacity circumstances, and it won't necessarily be equitable in terms of how unsettled and settled iwi can participate in the new system. And I think that's probably the biggest risk in terms of improving the role and voice of Māori in the new system. I don't necessarily know that that's made clear enough within the legislation, and I think there's probably, to a certain extent, perhaps a hope among the policy drafters out there that more settlements will progress before this document takes effect and ultimately results in new plans being drafted. But I don't think it's sufficiently clear in the legislation how we would go about enabling unsettled iwi in the new system in the most appropriate way.
Thanks. Did your submission raise that point at all, considering all the iwi within our district are pretty much unsettled?
It referenced the need to ensure that iwi were appropriately resourced, and particularly acknowledged that unsettled iwi would have an even greater need, and made the point that that local government can't alone fund iwi to participate in the way they need to in the new system, and that would be relying on central government support to do that.
Thanks.
Timeline now, Lauren?
So submissions close very shortly on the 5th of February, although they have indicated they'll approve extensions up till about the 20th of February. And they're planning to get through this stage pretty quickly. They want the new legislation in place prior to the election and to be in effect by the end of the year. Transition timeframes, I'm expecting that would take probably around about 10 years to transition from where we are now to a whole new system. And I don't think the complexity of that can be underestimated.
Amazing. Yeah. 10 years. Sees you and I out, David, anyway, probably. Thank you, Lauren. I appreciate all the work that's gone into that submission. And, yeah, as I said, I think, I look forward to the ongoing discussion because I think it's pretty obvious that most councils are aligning in terms of their voice, especially around the loss of local voice, and whether they listen to us or not will be interesting to see. Thank you. So can I just put 2.3 then, that the council approve the submission on the natural and built environment bill and spatial planning bill. Have a mover from Councillor Young, seconded Deputy Mayor Allen. Any further discussion? Well, Councillor Tukapua, sorry.
Yeah, I would just like some stronger wording around that point of pre-settlement. It just, and actually explicitly say that for our community, that's what it looks like. It's not, and because I just don't, like, I'm reading it over again and I think it just doesn't quite hit. And it's certainly not specific in that conclusion either when we highlight our main. Anyway, I'm just asking for a little bit of strong wording, otherwise so I'm happy to just support it.
The Chief Executive will take note of that. Yep. So the motion's on the table. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. So moving now to 7.4, Council Resolution and Actions Monitoring Report for January 2023. Move 2.1, 2.2 that the report be received. Moved Councillor Brannigan, second Councillor Horowhenua District. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Are there any questions from this report? There being none, we will now move to 8.1, which is the receipt of the petition from Bob and Ruth Ward and 239 others, which we received in December. Move 2.1, 2.2 that this petition be received. Moved Councillor Grimstone, seconded Councillor Barker. All those in favour? Against? Carried. And I believe our roading manager's going to come and speak to this, is he? Mm-hmm. He's shaking his head. Spontaneous response required.
Maybe if I introduce them.
Yes. Okay, give him a minute to think about it. Yeah.
Through you, Your Worship. So, councillors will recall that we had Bob and Ruth present to you at the end of last year. As per standing orders, what we're then required to do is formally bring that petition to council. You'll note in the report that there's some high level commentary around the shared pathways strategy, but also the work commencing around the Horowhenua Transport Choices project. What I thought it would be helpful to do is get Mr. Wallace to talk about kind of acknowledging we've got an existing strategy, we need to review that strategy, but we've got existing money in the budget, and there's been money in the budget for some time, and so I thought if we could talk a little bit about what are we actually doing right now, and what can our community expect to see, particularly between now and us commencing the work on the cycling and walking strategy, which isn't going to be until mid this year. So I'll hand over to Mr. Wallace.
Thank you. Yes, so that's correct. I did manage to have a good conversation with with Bob and Ruth Ward and others directly after they submitted the petition to council. I had a good conversation about our current work plans and our planning work we're moving forwards with later in the calendar year. So we are looking at really replacing our existing shared pathway strategy with a walking and cycling strategy, which will be more targeted towards providing a better, walkable, more connected and safer and more attractive active transport network throughout the district. The strategy itself, we're going to be definitely focused on getting the community feedback and getting the community's direction on how we're going to prioritise different types of active transport investment, whether that's focusing on commuting, whether it's focusing around safety around schools, whether it's focusing on recreational tracks or a combination of all of these. We had originally planned to do this a little bit earlier, but in terms of the current engagement going on in the community, we feel like we're best placed to take that on a little bit later in the year. So currently we're planning on a bit of an early engagement, public engagement process happening in May and June. We're using that to then springboard into targeted engagement with specific user groups and interested parties and local experts in the area. From that, we'll develop a draft strategy which we'll put out for consultation and eventually adoption. So we're expecting that process to run through May, June to probably October, wrapping it up depending on the resourcing and level of engagement we managed to achieve. In terms of our physical works program and what we're actually got on the go at the moment, you will be fairly across our transport choices funding we received. We've been approved for. So that's a project which is targeted towards which we want to design basically the key walking and cycling arterial routes, if you will, in Levin. So basically maximising the level of service we can on Queen Street as a almost east to west arterial, and working towards a north to south arterial along the rail reserve. So that's quite a large project which involves a lot of stakeholders, and it would be very difficult for us to achieve funding for without funding assistance from the government because of the cost of working around level crossings in particular. So that's a piece of work we're gearing up to start moving towards delivery over the course of this calendar year. The project has to be completed by the end of June next year, 2024 itself. And that's on top of, it's not replacing our sort of business as usual cycle facilities improvement work, which at the moment we're targeting really the quick wins, low cost, high volume amount of work for basically on-road cycleways where we have width, we know it's going to be used if it is, if they're painted in there, and it's going to be the users are going to be comfortable with the level of service provided. There's some roads where it's really a necessity to have a separated cycling facility because it's simply too busy, or it might just seem a bit too scary to ride your bicycle next to the busy road. But there's other roads that have enough width, don't necessarily have the same traffic volume, but we can expect to still be well used by cyclists simply by painting some markings on the road. I'm happy to take any questions on all that.
James. Okay, Mr. Wallace. When they did speak to us at the last meeting, they did raise a couple of the areas of concern which may fall into those quick win type scenarios. I think they referenced some overgrowth in the south end of town. And I think you were going to investigate a little bit further. We've been able to move forward on the couple of areas that they identified when they presented the submission.
We are working through that. So in particular, this is the sort of semi-sealed footpath / pathway along State Highway 1 to the south of Levin on the western side of the road. So that extends not quite as far as Bruce Road, or Buller Road, sorry. Now, we need to work with Waka Kotahi to actually understand the ownership of it and clarify that, and we've been engaging with them and trying to search through our records and search through their records. We understand there was a process quite some time ago that there was a bit of a funding share arrangement where we contributed to it and NZTA contributed to it, but we're unable to at this time find the details on our system of how that all worked out. But I think it is a quick win. There might be some improvements that are needed to the surface at the moment, but we'll definitely put that into our Ford Works program as long as we are confident that we can deliver the work. And it is our asset.
So, James, council can expect obviously workshops later in the towards that June period, and no doubt Bob and Ruth will be kept fully informed of the progress that we're making in that space.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. All right, so that brings us to the end of our open agenda. We do have one item of business in committee, so I will move that the public be excluded from the following parts of the proceedings, where we will discuss the appointment of external members to the Risk and Assurance Committee. Can I have a seconder for that, please? Councillor Tukapura. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, the rest of everybody, for their participation.